Today we celebrate again Earth Day, but should we celebrate it only once a year or all year round? How committed are we in protecting and preserving our environment for the future? And what is our role and our responsibilities in coping with climate change, which is a real threat to the survival of mankind? Joining us tonight on NewsLife is the Executive Director of Earthnetwork Philippines, Mr. Voltaire Alferez. Good evening, sir. Welcome to NewsLife.
Good evening.
Sir, to start us off, how conscious are Filipinos with the yearly celebration of Earth Day? Does every Filipino know what it means to them?
Well, in relation to 5 years ago, I think more and more Filipinos are conscious of the celebration of Earth Day, especially because of the viral internet and online access by many of our countrymen. The call for Earth Day is not just to celebrate it on April 22, but in fact, our motto is always Earth Day every day, because little acts of green for Mother Earth can be done on a day-to-day basis, consciously or even unconsciously.
And we will get more into detail with that later on. Climate change is a real threat to our way of life. This summer, for instance, is very hot. It affects our health and it impacts our food production. For instance, moreover, when typhoons strike, they bring death and destruction. How can we mitigate losses? The government surely cannot do this alone.
Definitely, and that's why the mission is to bring together different sectors of society. We have government, local governments, business, civil society organizations, and even churches. We bring them together in order to have a unified response to the threats of climate change. Now, mitigation is one thing, and this is something that is more on the political and even in the international level, but on the adaptation stage, that is, I think, where these sectors of society can really work together in order to help our fellow countrymen prepare themselves for the onslaught, as it were, of the different effects of climate change. For example, disaster preparedness in terms of flood, typhoon, and even landslides. Mitigation, yes, definitely, because we also need to check on our greenhouse emissions. However, overriding this topic and this issue is the issue of how prepared are Filipinos, we who live in an archipelago, different environmental phenomena that is already ravaging us in this country. And so I think bringing together the different sectors will definitely help us in this manner of preparation.
So in the light of all this, in what way can every single citizen contribute in their little way their share? For instance, we know tree planting is one of them, or cleaning up our watersheds, lakes and rivers, and solid waste management. Are all of us aware of what must be done?
Well, definitely not many of us are aware, and that is why we always make use of Earth Day as a platform to remind our fellow countrymen the importance of having this kind of empathy towards the environment, because after all, if we come to think of it, we need the environment more than the environment needs humanity on this planet. And yes, there are little ways that can be done. For example, brushing your teeth using a glass of water, the faucet flow. If that is multiplied by the millions every morning, then there is volume and volume of water that we can save. So it's true in terms of energy consumption, when all of us would make it a point not to overcharge our cell phones and our laptops and perhaps turn off our lights when we are not using them. Imagine if we multiply this by the millions, how much fossil fuel are we saving and therefore not contributing to the greenhouse emission in the world.
So if our viewers at home want to read more on what little things they can do in their own little world, can they access your website?
Definitely, they can access our website, www.earthdayphilippines.org. But also there's an exciting news for Earth Day Philippines. We just launched, in fact, this morning, the first ever Earth Day app. Not even the Earth Day International has an app. And so we'd like to invite our friends, countrymen, to download this app on Android and iOS. It's Earth Day PH or EDNPH. And you can find their carbon footprint calculator, different green tips that will remind you of how you can be a green citizen even in the comforts of your home.
Fantastic. So, sir, moving on, how do we protect our food chain, and how important is a national land use policy?
Well, in my opinion, the national land use policy is a very important piece of legislation, because through this policy and through this law, we will be able to delineate and to truly set aside those areas in the country, the remaining important areas that we can protect. And at the same time, this policy, this piece of legislation will also allow us to fully develop those that we can develop for our economy, for our food security, and even for the farming communities that would necessarily need this kind of piece of legislation. This land use policy would also allow us to project, in a way, the necessary actions and interventions by government as well as from the private sector in order for us to secure food as well as protect our ecosystems.
Sir, a final word from you.
I would just like to invite everyone that the celebration of Earth Day doesn't begin or end in April 22. In fact, our motto in this celebration, let every day be Earth Day, because truly, even if you are sitting on a jeepney waiting for your ride to your office, or perhaps you were just doing your thing in school or in work, we can do so much by not littering, by managing our waste, by conserving energy, conserving water, and all of these little acts of green, when multiplied by millions and millions of Filipinos, will definitely give an impact to the preservation and protection of the Philippine environment. And that's why our call is to celebrate Earth Day every day.
Absolutely. We're all responsible for the impact we have on our world. Thank you very much, Mr. Voltaire Alferez, Executive Director of Earthnetwork Philippines. Happy Earth Day again to you, sir, and to all of us.
Happy Earth Day.